This is the last video of the series, and we're going to be talking about the ugly, which we are referencing as a description of really the creativity and ingenuity of the savvy internet user. We'll start with this interesting story here. Found this at the Hacker News. It says that a casino got hacked through its internet-connected fish tank thermometer. So you guys have heard of the Internet of Things, sometimes called the IoT. The Internet of Things refers to the interconnected devices that are not typically thought of when we think of a computer, but are, in fact, computerized and connected to the internet. And in this amazing story, the hackers were able to hack into a casino through a fish tank thermometer, an internet-connected fish tank thermometer. So imagine one of those really expensive big saltwater fish tanks, and you need to monitor it from a distance. So you have a thermometer that's connected to your iPhone. Maybe you're the fish tank cleaner, for example, the caretaker. That's what the hackers found, apparently. It says that the hackers used that to get a foothold in the network. They then found the high roller database and pulled that back across the network, out through the thermostat, and up into the cloud. When we talk about hackers, we're going to be talking about three types. Generally what we refer to as a white hat, a black hat, or a gray hat. And to be fair, there's probably no such thing as a purely white hat hacker or black hat hacker. Everyone is susceptible to human flaws and frailties, but generally speaking, a white hat hacker is someone who's out there trying to fight against the black hat hackers. They're probably hired by a government to look for weaknesses in networks and things like that. Whereas a black hat hacker is generally out there doing something we would consider bad. They're exploiting a weakness to expose data, to harm someone, or to make money, or for some other reason. Or somewhere in between. There's a lot of gray hat, I would say, hackers. Probably most hackers are honestly in this area. I don't really think anyone is purely good or purely evil, so let's say that most of them are gray. We'll call these the ugly, right? A lot of these hackers were made famous in the 80s, and even a movie ended up being made about a hacker that was very popular in the 80s. And in the movie, the character is, well, he's kind of a gray hat, I would say. He's a little nefarious, he's young. This kind of represents the whole culture, really. Kevin Mitnick is probably the most famous hacker from this era. And he was once considered the most wanted cybercriminal in the United States. Currently, he works as a cybersecurity expert, and he travels around the world describing current exploits that hackers can use in order to help other cybersecurity experts, or white hat hackers, protect their companies and interests. Interesting thing to note about him is that he was interested in magic at a young age. And magic is essentially social engineering. Taking concepts from social engineering, he was able to hack people in order to get the information he needed to access a system.
People are the weakest link in security. People, not the technology. I'm living in Denver, Colorado. Incidentally, I'm not living under the name of Kevin Mitnick. I'm under the name of Eric Weiss. Why Eric Weiss? Because at the time I was a federal fugitive. I was hiding from the FBI, and my idol was Harry Houdini, and that's Harry Houdini's real name, so I thought I had a sense of humor. So I called directory assistance, I get the number to Motorola. I'm now talking to the vice president for research and development for all of Motorola Mobility. And I go, hey, this is Rick over in Arlington Heights, because I found out they had an Arlington Heights facility. I'm looking for the project manager of the microattack. And the VP goes, oh, that's Pam. She works for me. Would you like her extension? I go, sure, give it to me. And he gives me the extension. So my next call is to Pam, but I don't get her. I get her outgoing greeting on her voicemail. And she told her callers that she just left on a 2-week vacation, the date she's returning, and if you need any help whatsoever, please call Alicia on extension blah, blah, blah. So of course, my next call is to Alicia, and she answers the phone, and I go, hey, Alicia, this is Rick over in Arlington Heights. Did Pam leave on vacation yet? Of course, I already knew she had. And she goes, yes. And I go, well, before she left, She said that you could help me get a copy of the microattack source code. She said you would help me out. She goes, oh, I found the source code, but there's a problem. She goes, I'm going to have to talk to my security manager about what you're asking me to do. I'll be right back. And I go, no, wait, because I didn't want her to talk to any security manager. And about 8 minutes later, she comes back on the line, and I'm nervous. And she goes, Rick? And I go, uh-huh. And she goes, that IP address you gave me to do the file transfer is not inside Motorola's campus, it's outside. And because of that, I can't transfer the file because we need to use a special proxy server to do so, and I don't have an account. And I go, uh-huh, and I just go, all right, thank you very much. And she goes, wait, I have some great news for you. I go, what? She goes, my security manager gave me his personal username and password so I could log onto the proxy server to send you the file. Motorola had a bunch of technical security, but it only took me 15 minutes with a good gift of gab to get the crown jewels. So that's how that worked.
But you didn't sell it. It was curiosity.
No,
it was sport. It was excitement.
Trophy.
There was a movie made about him actually describing his very public 2-year chase, arrest, and incarceration. Steve Wozniak, one of the founders of Apple, is one of the people who protested his arrest and incarceration. They viewed it as a witch hunt. During his trial, the lawyer who was prosecuting him claimed that he could use a phone to launch a nuclear missile just by whistling, which is not true. And I'd just like to point out that in case anyone thinks, social engineering, that's not that big of a deal. DARPA, the Defense Department's Advanced Research Project Agency, part of the US military, this is how serious social engineering is. DARPA has an active social engineering defense program. A program that's always going, it's active, and they're trying to root out, sort out, eliminate all of the human data breach weaknesses. Human-based. This is not computer-based, this is completely human-based. We should remember that when we think about Kevin Mitnick, that essentially what he did was social engineering hacks, and he describes that in many different ways.
My first social engineering, which I didn't even know what social engineering was when I was 12 years old. My first objective was trying to find out where you get the punch that these bus drivers use. As I'm getting off the bus, I asked the bus driver, I say, hey, listen, I'm working on this project in school. We take these cardboards and we make all these really cool shapes. And I noticed when you gave me that piece of paper, it had really cool shapes. Where do you guys buy those things? Maybe I can get my mom to buy me one so I can do the shapes on the cardboard. And the guy goes, oh, we buy it at the store, and he gave me the address, actually. The guy behind the counter goes, what's that for? Because bus drivers buy these. I go, oh no, it's for my dad. He works for the RTD. It's a Christmas present. And I made friends with a lot of the bus drivers, and they would just give me the blank books of transfers, knowing what I was doing. And nobody ever told me it was wrong. So that's kind of my first hack.
The next Kevin we're going to talk about is Kevin Poulsen. Currently, Kevin Poulsen works as a writer. He is Senior National Security Correspondent at the Daily Beast, a writer for Wired magazine, and has even written a cybercrime-based nonfiction book. However, he is most famous for hacking the phone networks of Los Angeles area radio stations so that he could win money and prizes, including a Porsche 944 S2, while he was on the lam from the FBI. He did this by jamming all their incoming calls except his own.
You got free tickets right now if you are caller number 20.
And therefore being the only caller able to call in and claim the prize. Like many of his contemporaries, Kevin Poulsen started as a phreaker. Someone who builds, steals, or hacks devices so they can, among other things, make long-distance phone calls for free. In fact, Steve Jobs, yes, that's Steve Jobs, as a college student, was involved in a scheme to build and sell small devices they called blue boxes, which they sold to fellow classmates at UC Berkeley so they could make unlimited phone calls back home for free. After receiving his first computer at age 16, Poulsen began testing his abilities and at one point was able to connect and log on to the Advanced Research Projects Agency Network, ARPANET, the US government-designed network that became the precursor to the Internet of today. Unsolved Mysteries, a popular TV program in America which ran from 1987 to 2010, produced 2 whole segments on Poulsen over the years. He was eventually caught. Poulsen pled guilty to conspiracy, fraud, and intercepting wire transmissions. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. After he was released, he changed his life for the better by becoming a journalist and making a computer script that helped locate over 700 sex offenders on MySpace. Except for that time he ran away and hacked the phone line so he could win a Porsche, he has lived a relatively harmless life now that the government has taken away all his toys. However, as a cybercrime writer, he seems to have found his niche as an observer and documenter of other people's hacks. Gary McKinnon, a Scottish systems engineer, is an interesting case because it seems, for him at least, that he was just looking for the truth about what he and many others seem to believe is a cover-up of the United States military involvement with UFO technology. Gary, like many people around the world, believe that extraterrestrials have visited our planet, and that the US government has evidence of this, and is even building their own devices based on alien technology that they have captured or been given. Gary was specifically looking for free energy technology, which he and many others believe the US government has access to and is keeping secret. Gary hacked into NASA computers many times over a 13-month period between 2001 and 2002 in order to try to find evidence of this. He even taunted them with messages like, "Your security is crap." He claims he found a file titled Non-Terrestrial Officers and a list of ship names which were not part of the US Navy fleet. He claims these ships were part of an extraterrestrial fleet. However, I can't help but to wonder, was the US government really unaware that they were being hacked? We have seen cases where systems administrators will isolate a breach into a subsection of their intranet and monitor the hacker's behavior. Is it possible that a NASA system engineer created fraudulent files for McKinnon to discover as part of their investigation into his activities? Or did McKinnon actually discover evidence of a NASA alien joint space program? These questions remain in my mind. However, I do believe that McKinnon was not intentionally trying to cause any harm. It seems he was simply curious to see what he could find and believed that there was a cover-up he could expose for the betterment of mankind. He was trying to get at the truth. McKinnon was charged with hacking into US government computers. However, Britain refused to extradite him on the grounds that he was mentally ill.
Mr. McKinnon is accused of serious crimes, but there is also no doubt that he is seriously ill. He has Asperger's syndrome and suffers from depressive illness. The legal question before me is now whether the extent of that illness is sufficient to preclude extradition.
For McKinnon at least, this was a godsend. Now he is primarily interested in studying free energy devices and creating original music. So, there you have it. 3 of the most famous hackers in the world, 2 named Kevin, and a 3rd not named Kevin, who were all born in the mid-60s and were teenagers at the height of the freaking era when hardware manipulation was the trend. Many of these hackers we have seen have gone on to have careers in cybersecurity, and some even became giants in the tech industry. I wonder what kind of trouble the current generation of smartphone-carrying teens will get themselves into.